Hey there, Alan Matthews here. In this video, we are going to talk about ways to simplify your practice of a piece. So oftentimes whenever there are tricky spots, whenever there is just tough music and it's a big piece to learn, then we have to simplify or else we just cannot do it. First thing we can do is just make small sections, right? That's the first thing, is just don't play. Here's an entire page of music right here, right? Don't practice this entire page of music. Make a little bitty spot. So it might be that you just practice that, or even just that. Boom, just like a little bitty spot. The next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take out repeated material. So in other words, we can just look at this. This is Malagueña, by the way. So to play this, we can just practice it, right? Or we can just sight read it and know what it is. So what is our thing? And then we can look at this and say, oh look, there's this E that just goes all the way through all of this, right? Well, so then the first thing to do would be to just get rid of that. Yes, you'll put it back in later, but for now, get rid of it because it's just clogging the water. It's muddying the waters. It's making things take longer, and it's a big distraction because you're having to work out different right-hand things. It's just too much. So then what you're left with is just this. Well, this is much easier to learn, and it's a smaller section, right? So your small section could be just to here, always crossing the bar line, a little side tip, always cross the bar line in your small sections. So now all we have is, well, now that is manageable, right? So now we can just know that. Then once you get that, you memorize it, do whatever you need to do with it. Then you can add back in your original and then have the entire thing. We just went to right here. Then we can have the original. And you haven't been confused by all that repeated material. You can also simplify your music or your section by only playing one particular element of it. So for instance, let's look at this line right here. We've got this bottom line right here. And so we have chords, just to glance at it, we have chords, right? And then we also have these scale patterns as well, right? We've got all this interweaving. We have scale, chord, scale, chord, scale, chord. Well, the first thing to do would be to separate those out. So then once we have this, once we've separated this, then we can play just the chords. And this will be the flow of the music. So now we can just work on just that, and we can get the rhythm, we can get the feel of what it's going to be like. If you know how it goes in your head, then you can sing along just like I just did. And that way you get used to putting that chord right on those beats. Oftentimes, if you don't do that, it'll end up, there's all this shiftiness with the rhythm. Instead, you can just get the pulse and the flow of it. Likewise, we can just play just the melody. And when you're playing just the melody, still play this top note of the chord, because that is actually part of the melody. So we have chord. And so it's just the melody. Right? And just work on that without the need to actually be jumping fast back and forth with all of these other things. So you've just separated out, you've separated your work into two different things. Then it'll be much easier to put them back together. It also, you can get away with just playing one of them. Like if you really need to get through this section and you just can't do it, then just play the melody. And that's all you do. And you just drop everything else out and then add it back in, add the chords back in when you can. Because the worst is whenever you have these rhythmic lurches. So what this does is it trains you to play, to get the melody right in time and to just move right to it. It's not, that doesn't make any sense. So by simplifying it, separate out your like things. Now also within a piece, you can practice like material together. So if you had this, so we have this same line that we're looking at right now, let's say that you have this, and then in another part of the piece, you have something similar. It's different notes, but it's similar type material. Then you could practice those two kind of at the same time, at the same portion of your practice, so that you have that, and then you have your other one, whatever it happened to be. It doesn't happen to exist in this particular version of this piece, but you can find similar material throughout the song and practice those the same, especially if it's like the first 3 measures of a phrase are the same, but then it's a different ending of a phrase. Well, then practice those together. Practice those endings of the phrases together so that you can just get them in your head similarly. So you can put them and associate them in your head. All right, those are some tips. So just a quick recap. If you see repeated notes or repeated material going through a lot of things, going through a long ways, then just take it out, even if it's just for a measure. Then just pull that out and then practice without that and then put it back in. And then if you have differing material, such as chords and then scales back and forth, then just practice the chords separately from the scales. You can also, incidentally, practice just the first, if it's a lot going on, you can just practice just the first note of each measure, or just on the half notes, and then add in the first 2 notes, and then the first 3 notes, or whatever it happens to be, so that you simplify your music and then put it back together. So hope you enjoyed that. Hope it turns out for some good fodder for your practice. I look forward to seeing you in the near future. Please subscribe to this channel. Thank you so much for watching. Take care.